SNL 50, one of the many reasons you're here.
Did you get the invite?
It's Sunday. I got the music invite. I didn't get the other one. It's what, 200 people?
It's 300 people in 8H, and it is turning out to be the toughest ticket I have ever seen in Hollywood. Like, I don't know that there's even any sports equivalent of how exclusive this is. There are 300 seats. There are, hundreds of former cast members of the show, guest hosts, musical guests, executives that went in on this, friends of Lorne, Paul McCartney, all of them want into this thing.
Right.
There's no room. The overflow room is going to be a tough ticket.
So you have I talked to John Hamm about it in the last week, and he said he's going. Right.
He's in.
So there's a level of there's a guest host level where it's like Hanks, John Hamm, there's probably like 20, 25 of those.
And Hamm probably didn't tell you this, but he's probably only in because he's hot right now. Like he's after Landman, after Morning Show, after Fargo, like he's a hot actor right now, so he's in. But like there are probably some frequent guest hosts from the 80s and 90s that are not in because they are not cool anymore.
And then you have 50 seasons of casts. Some of them are dead.
Some of them are.
But a lot of them are alive from the 80s on. And it's like they're Eddie Murphy, but then like you get into like, is Piscopo one of the 300? I would think he has to be.
You'd think so. But remember at the 40th, there was a whole controversy over Victoria Jackson being in an overflow room. And she freaked out. So like the cuts are going to be tough. They're doing it right now, actually. I heard they're doing it today and tomorrow.
Oh, really? And then you have the music stuff because there's people like Paul Simon and
Friends
McCartney.
of Lorne.
Yeah, the Friends of Lorne, but then also bands like if Bono wants to be there, like he had one of the best music performances I've ever had. So he has to get in there. So I don't know how they do it.
Taylor and Travis, they got to be there. I mean, you just go down the list of people that are either super famous and just nobody ever says no to them, or they're friends of Lorne, or they're important to the show. Like I can't even imagine. I would not wish this on anybody to have to pick that room.
Nobody has a +1, I'm guessing.
Oh, hell no. No, there's not going to be an extraneous person in that room.
So
maybe
the
CEO of Comcast. Maybe his wife comes.
Well, that's the other thing. You need the rich guy circles and you need the network circles. You
Ted
need
Sarandos
NBC
told me
people.
He's going, the CEO of Netflix, and he has nothing to do with the show. He's just a fan, but he's powerful enough in Hollywood that he can get in.
Well, they had to invite him because he could have basically destroyed SNL the last 6 years by doing Friday Night SNL on Netflix, and he loved the show and he didn't. He's never doing that one.
Ted loves comedy so much. There's always the rumor that he will just decide to do a Friday night or a Sunday night version and just steal all the people from SNL. I think he has too much respect for Lorne to do that, but post Lorne, all bets are off.
I am positive that as long as Lorne is there, he's never doing that because he loves the show and he loves Lorne. But the moment Lorne leaves, I think Netflix just takes that entire corner.
And NBC will walk right into it because once Lorne leaves, they will start cost cutting on the show because it's hugely expensive for what it is. And Lorne has been able to beat them back, but they will start to cut costs and Ted will recognize it and he'll swoop in.
So you think like just the 300 people in this place, which is basically like having the NBA Finals Game 7 in an arena that has 900 seats. You think they've been planning this for like 6 months and they started out with a list of like 2,000 names and
6
levels
years.
And
they started this after the 45th. I mean, this is the culmination of Lorne's life work. Like they have been planning this. Comcast is giving this the whole symphony treatment where every aspect of the company tries to promote this thing. They set this whole, 3-day weekend thing with the music and then the documentary premieres and all this stuff around the live show. They've been building this thing up like it's bigger than a sporting event for TV. And they have Lorne, I guarantee you, has been thinking about every single person who will be in that room for more than a year.
And we do not think he's retiring after the year. I'm 99% sure he's not.
He has said he is not. He has said he's going to do the fade out thing where he slowly brings in people to help him with certain things, but he is the ultimate decider. And push comes to shove, he is in charge. We'll see.
How did you feel about the documentaries and all the stuff that they did to lead to this moment? And I have some thoughts on what it might mean to the culture too.
Because I only knew about the cowbell sketch from columns that you wrote 20 years ago.
Right.
Which caused me to check it out. I thought they were generally good, better than might be expected for promotional documentaries. The one with the old footage of their auditions, I thought that was super fun. I hadn't seen a lot of that stuff. The cowbell one was my favorite just because it was amazing. The season 11 one, it raised a lot of questions to me that I don't think the documentary answered. They did a whole documentary just on this lost season where everybody kind of got fired at the end. And it was a little bit like you felt like one of those docs where they're not telling me the whole story here.
That was the most frustrating one to me.
Yeah. Lorne, huge flex. Didn't even appear in any of the documentaries promoting his show.
Right.
They had to use archive footage of Lorne. Like, he didn't sit for his own documentaries.
The season 11 one I was so excited for because that's such a crazy stretch of the show where basically he leaves after year 5. Ebersol comes in. The show is cratering and then Eddie Murphy saves it. They figure out a way to kind of keep Eddie Murphy, even though he's filming all the stuff in the first half of the show. They dole out the sketches to save it in season 9. And then season 10 becomes the all-star season with Billy Crystal, Martin Short, all those guys. And it's awesome. Season 10 is one of the best seasons in the history of the show. But then all those guys leave and Lorne comes back and Lorne tries to zag and hires all these young writers or young actors, new writing staff, whole thing, and just misses. And I was like, they're doing a this sounds amazing, but it didn't dive into the Lorne stuff. It didn't really dive into why he came back, like the failure of the new show, which he had tried to do where he owned it. He almost went bankrupt from the show.
Right. Or his
and basically took the
Dick
job because he needed the money. Yeah. And the Dick Ebersol thing where he was so mad that Dick Ebersol was being considered successful with the show. And that's a really fun dynamic, those two.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Ebersol is still alive. Apparently, he's not doing great, but that's another mystery is will he show up at the 50th?
He has to be there. He saved the show. The show's dead.
You know what? You would think so, but I don't know how well he's doing these days. And I don't know what the state of that relationship with Lorne is. I don't think they are close. It may be a respect thing that he invites him, but I don't know if he'll be there. The season 11 thing is amazing. I actually didn't know about that whole thing where they ended the season on a cliffhanger of firing all the
right
cast.
And just kept and he pulls Lovitz out. Lovitz is the only one. That's the other funny thing is Lovitz was the breakout star of that season, which tells you about the season.
It's amazing. And you can imagine if they did that today. It's just like so much happened on SNL in the 80s and 90s where if it happened during the social media era, it would be gigantic. And it just kind of came and went at 10 to 1 in the morning. And maybe people talked about it the next day. Maybe there was a newspaper article and then it was on to the next.
I think when they did this for SNL 40 and we blew it, it was my last year at Grantland and we blew it out. We had a whole week. We did the March Madness bracket I remember that. For people on the show. We did an awesome job. You can go back and read it for people listening. We had like 20 pieces. I wrote a piece right after the SNL 40 show, which was 3 hours. And I think the headline was like, bloated SNL 40 was actually kind of perfect because that's what the show was. But the 40-year mark was really cool because the show was still really good, really relevant, and still really, really good at breaking stars. And it had just come off that awesome cast with Hader and Sandberg and Sudeikis and Will Forte and Armisen and Kristen Wiig. And you look back at that cast and you're like, holy shit. Like we didn't even realize in the moment how loaded all of them went on to do all these other things. And the last 10 years, they just haven't had the same success with the cast. And I think that's what's different. I look at these last 10 years and it's like, there's really no breakout stars that they've developed. Kate McKinnon was probably the last one and she's not somebody who can carry her own thing. She's good as like being part of something. But that's what's changed in the last 10 years, I think.
Yeah, and I think that coincides with the rise of TikTok and online comedy and things that have sort of
Right.
put SNL in the rear view. Also, COVID didn't help. A live show like that depends on spontaneity. Like those were rough years. The cast has gotten too big. And I think Lorne would probably admit that. They just have too many people. He lets them go off and do other things during the season now, where like if you look at someone like Bowen Yang, who they tried to make a star and didn't really work out, like they had a show 2 weeks ago and he was in LA on the Thursday before the show announcing the Oscar nominations. And then he gets on a plane and he goes back to SNL for the show on Saturday night. And then on Sunday, he was at Sundance promoting a movie that he had done. So like, is Bowen Yang even part of that cast? Part of the whole SNL ethos is that you're there all the time. You're pitching, you're writing, you're coming up with bits. I mean, he was in and out of New York during that week doing his other projects and is sort of like kind of on the show. Like, it's just a different thing now than when you had these tight 10-person casts that had an identity to them. Now it's like sort of a revolving door.
Yeah, the only times they really did that over the course of the show, like Belushi was filming 1941, I think in season 4 and flying back and forth. Eddie Murphy was doing movies when he was there. You made exceptions for like the major stars. It seems like they've made a lot more exceptions in recent years.
Yeah, Will Ferrell did a couple things, but like when Will Ferrell decided to be a movie star, he left SNL. Adam Sandler left SNL. Like it was a thing. Someone like A.D. Bryant had a Hulu show that was greenlit, aired, and was canceled all while she was on SNL.
Right. Well,
like she had this whole side career going.
The thing you said about the cast, one of the great moments of this podcast when I was at ESPN was I got to interview Lorne in his office, which was, an incredible career move for me. Career moment. It was just like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I had so many questions to ask him. I got to talk to him for an hour 20.
Did he offer you popcorn?
I don't think he offered me popcorn. Maybe he might have. But I talked to him about the cast thing. And I talked to him about my theory about how the cast was like a basketball team and you had to have the starting 5 and the 4 or 5 people off the bench. But once you have 17 people, it's just too hard to get everyone involved. And he was explaining why he did it. And the reasons actually made sense, where he was like, some people aren't ready for the first year or the second year. It really takes until year 3 that you got to develop people behind them. I think the thing they really fucked up in the last 10 years was using these celebrities for big parts. And I've said this before, not being able to break new stars with parts like Biden, Trump, these things. If you go back to the history of the show, the cast members were always playing the people in the zeitgeist. And they shifted away from that and started giving those parts to these other people. They even did it in 24. Like Maya Rudolph as Kamala Harris. Like, why can't that be a cast member? And I think that's what shifted.
Alec Baldwin killed SNL.
Well, I think the theory of using people like Alec Baldwin, I think, was a huge mistake. I know
it's a drug. It's like heroin. It worked really well. People loved it. Lorne got the zeitgeist back for these big stunty moments. He started to get news articles out of who was playing who on SNL. And we saw it during 2015, 2016 with the whole Trump White House and Melissa McCarthy coming in to play Sean Spicer, Matt Damon doing Kavanaugh. Like all that stuff was so alluring to them that they kind of got addicted to it. And it was like a drug. You get a high off it, but there's a definite downside. And the downside is the show itself suffers. And the people that are on there for 4 or 5 years, you don't even know who they are.
Right. And I remember right around when it started, Will Ferrell used to do that Janet Reno dance party sketch.
Mm-hmm.
And then Janet Reno
wouldn't happen today.
Would not. It was. I think that sketch is canceled. But Janet Reno came on,
right?
If I remember.
Yeah.
And it was right at early 2000s. They started bringing the people they were parroting on. The show was really, the show would go for it with celebrities. It was really mean spirited in a way that I used to love, and my friends all loved in the 90s.
I mean, you look back at some of those David Spade monologues, like those would never happen today. The entire culture of celebrity has changed, where if you do that stuff now, you have to expect that you will get blowback from those people. And some of they court those celebrities so much now that they can't parody them. Like, who are the two most famous people in American culture right now? I think I've said this either on The Town or I forget where before, but Taylor and Travis. SNL should be going after Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce relentlessly.
Having fun with it, but going after him. Totally.
Yeah,
I agree.
Totally going after them. But no, they don't, because they want them to come on the show.
How about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni? How is that not like a talk show where they hate each other and they're next to each other?
I know. It's the thing that everybody in the culture is happening. But Blake is married to Ryan. Ryan has a lot of friends. They're in the Taylor Swift universe.
But that's what's happened. That's the biggest thing that's happened to the show this century over the last 20 years. And I remember when Tina Fey came on as Palin all those times, and then they brought Palin on, and you talked about it's like a drug. They get addicted to the crowd reaction. And then that became like, we're going to have fun with these celebrities, but we also need the celebrities. I remember when Andy Samberg did that Mark Wahlberg sketch. Hey, how's your brother? How's your mother? And it was really funny. And Mark Wahlberg got pissed and they ended up bringing him on the next week to kind of give Samberg shit. And it was like, this isn't the show. The show was like kind of mean and ruthless sometimes with celebs. And now it seems like it courts the celebrities in a completely different way, which I just think is a product of Lorne being an older guy who he's a celebrity himself. And that's how he sees
establishment.
it.
The show was counterculture, and then it became the culture. And now it's sort of, it's ripe for disruption, to be honest. And you could argue that everything online and TikTok and everything has disrupted it, but it is ripe for something online. In Living Color sort of did it. Lorne had a huge blind spot with diverse people, with Black people in particular on the show. Yeah. And then in Living Color comes on, taking Damon Wayans, who was on the show and famously was fired. They disrupted them in the 90s and had a thing going. And I think that was the last time that someone directly took on SNL and won, and not beat them, but had their own success. There is a version of SNL for today's audience that would work, I think, and it's beyond something that's on TikTok. You could say that TikTok is SNL for today's audience, but there's something in a format, in an hour and a half format, that would work, and is just SNL's just sitting there like a buffalo wandering the Serengeti.
I can't believe it hasn't happened yet. No, it's like if Netflix had done this 2 years ago on Friday nights, I think SNL would have been in real trouble. They would have gotten the jump on them. The other way to beat SNL that nobody is, like, SNL just goes away from mid-May to, late September. And every 4 years you have a political election. That's the most fun part to parody.
Yeah.
And like Netflix could have just launched a Friday night SNL show last May.
Yeah.
And just crushed it for 4 months. And by the time SNL came back, it would have felt like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
So
call it like a, summer stock, or do it as a stunt in the summer.
Yeah.
And then you don't even have to compete with SNL. And all of a sudden you've got the political conventions, you've got all the campaign stuff to yourself.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is an incredible run. The fact that it's been on for 50 years and my entire life, and I remember all the pieces of it, but
it is amazing. There's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. Especially like the music, which I was really glad they did that music documentary, even though I thought they missed a couple things that I was just stunned by. But I was always, one of my favorite underrated things about the show was just catching all of these acts at the greatest time of their career, right as they're about to do this. And they would just over and over again get these people. And then sometimes, it would just go the other way. This was it. That was the highlight. And then it was gone. I can't wait to see what happens Sunday night. I mean, it's one of the last must-see 8 p.m. network shows that's not sports or not an award show that we're probably ever going to have, right?
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. FanDuel line, who opens the show?
Do they go music or sketch would be my first
Sketch.
question.
I think they will do a traditional cold open.
All right, so if they ask me, I would have the 4 or 5 best people in the history of show on stage together.
Oh, I do not think they will do that, because
I don't think they would either.
Because all that does is beg the question of who is the best ever? And that's a question that Lorne does
but
not
a
want to
couple of them are
answer.
dead though, so that makes it it's sad to
No,
say,
no,
but
no.
it's a
I
little
think
easier. But you
the
take one
only way
person
to
from
do
each
it-
era. You take Aykroyd, you take Eddie, you take somebody from the Hartman era. Maybe it's Dana Carvey. You have Will Ferrell. You have maybe Kristen Wiig,
Maybe
and it's like the
Hader,
five.
Sudeikis.
Maybe Hader. No, but I'm saying you have like 5 or 6 to start. I think they're going to go with celebrities though to start. It'll be like Tom Hanks, Paul Simon. It'll be like the Five Timers Club, basically. Something like that would be my guess.
Maybe. Here's an option. What if they do an original sketch with the surviving originals from the 1975 cast?
So Chevy's still alive. Jane Curtin's still alive.
Dan, Lorraine Newman, Jane Curtin,
Garrett
and
Morris is
Garrett
still
Morris.
alive.
Yeah. So there's 5 of them still alive, and I believe they'll all be there.
Pretty risky. Some
I
of them
know.
are like in their late 70s.
But that eliminates any political problems because you don't have to deal with people who think they were the best cast member ever. You don't have to deal with the Eddie Murphy issue. You don't have to deal with any of these other things. You just say, you know what? We're going to go with the 5 originals, and then have something written for them. Al Franken can write it, Donahoe, or someone like that, and then you start the show with the rest of it.
I feel like he's going to take the easy way out and just start with like Paul Simon.
Maybe
Like performing with Paul McCartney, and like they'll start out with some song with like an awesome band, and that kicks it off. And then Chevy Chase, I think, has to start the show. Like officially be the one who they do some pratfall that they'll tape ahead of time, and then it kicks to the credits would be my guess.
Yeah. Or here's another idea. What about something with Keenan? Dude's been on the show longer than
for
anyone
28
else.
years.
They could do a whole sketch around
He
how
trips
long
Chevy?
Keenan's been there.